Hey there, and welcome to the Wholistic Badass Podcast. This is a podcast covering all things holistic. That means addressing topics covering and encompassing all of the things pertaining to the whole you, body, mind, and spirit. Let me, Lori, be your host and guide as we journey through a variety of topics from which you may draw from in order to form your own self-care regimens in a well-rounded way, which makes you a holistic badass. So sit back, buckle up, put your feet up if you're at home, be prepared to have your ears on if you're driving, and let's listen to what's up today. The information presented in this podcast is for informational and self-education use only. It is not intended for self-diagnosis, nor treatment, nor anything that constitutes the practice of medicine. Please consult with a qualified physician concerning the prudence of and before undertaking any major changes in diet, any treatments for disease, any use of drugs or prescription items, or the cessation thereof. Hey, Holistic Badasses! Today I have a fantastic episode for you. I recently got to have a talk with Cindy Dupuie, and she's a functional medicine nutritionist. And I can't wait for you to hear what we talked about. Here it comes, just for you. Hey, Holistic Badasses. Today I am here with Cindy Dupuie.
Dupuie. There you go.
I got to say it correctly. And Cindy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor. I'm the owner of A Living Balance, and I've been in private practice for over 20 years now. It's kind of a long time. I've just kind of moved my practice into just telehealth. So I see clients one-on-one, and I also have a course where it's a community. So I see people in group situations as well. And my background is I have a BS in dietetics and food administration, and from a long time ago. And I didn't do anything with it when I received that. I had a family and I worked for my then husband in the used car business. So kind of a departure.
Yes, just a bit.
Just a bit. But I made my way back to the body when I was about 45. And how I ended up there is I ended up I was in a stressful situation. I was going through a divorce. My body, my digestive system was really rebelling. And I knew that I wanted to get back in the body and to be able to help people because that's still my first love, still my first love. And I needed to help myself too because I wasn't getting help from the allopathic model there at all. So I ended up becoming a yoga instructor. That was the first thing that I did, and I absolutely loved it. And I'm still teaching, and love ordering my students around. It's the hot yoga, so it tends to be more.
See,
It tends to be more that way. Yeah.
I was gonna say I teach slow flow vinyasa,
Ah.
and so I look at it as relaxation twister. So just take your
Relaxation
right
twister.
hand,
Yes.
put it next to your left
Yes.
arch.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So I love that, you're in the yoga sphere
Yes.
as well. I feel like everyone needs to do some form of that.
Yeah.
But so from there, I ended up becoming or finding functional medicine. And for those of you who don't know what functional medicine is, it is a departure definitely from allopathic. And there's a lot of similarities to probably integrative medicine. Maybe the biggest principle or the biggest way that it possibly differs is that we look for the root cause of a disease or an imbalance in the body. So we're detectives, and I love being a detective. I love putting the dots together to figure out, and we kind of talked about this before we started recording, is how nothing in the body is siloed. And we have all of these ologists, right? All these specialists in Western medicine, and there probably is a place for that. But
Hmm.
when we get so siloed there, we're not getting the root cause. Last time I looked, everything in my body was connected. So if you start
Hmm.
repairing something and really honing in on something, it's probably going to cause an imbalance somewhere else or further that down the road, which is, I think,
Right.
one of the reasons why so many people, when they hit 65 and 70, they're on so many different types of medications. One of the reasons why they're on so many different types of medications. We're treating the symptoms, but we're also causing problems, with the medication. We're
Right.
shutting something else down and causing more imbalance. So I found functional medicine as I was trying to get my foothold back into nutrition. And I found, and I don't know if you've heard of Mark Hyman, Dr. Mark
Yes.
Hyman. Okay. So I found his book. It's called the Ultra, well, he's written many books, but it's called the Ultra Metabolism. And I picked it up and I went, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And then the Institute of Functional Medicine happened to be having a training out here in Pasadena, California, which is right near me.
Hmm.
And I saw it and I looked in my bank account and and said, I am there. And it was a very intensive 6-day training. And I knew I found my tribe, have not looked back since, was able to help myself and able to help my clients going forward just because of that training. And then, of course, continuing to take other classes and continuing to
Right.
be stay curious. So that's kind of my background. And then I've moved into perimenopause and menopause, helping women in that area for basically two reasons. I got into it probably a year or two before everything took off in social media and media in general. And I'm glad it has. I'm glad it
Hmm.
has. It needs to. Um, but what was happening is some of the women who had been with me for a while and they're, in menopause now, and I knew how they ate. I knew their lifestyle. I knew their stress level. I knew that we were doing pretty much what we're supposed to be doing
Right.
on the levels that you can't ignore, right? You can't ignore those. But we were still losing some ground in some areas. So I kind of
Hmm.
went, you know what? I got to look into this piece. And then that, along with looking at my contemporaries and watching them become less vital, less mobile, in more pain, seeing the doctors more. So I thought, you know what? And I was on HRT. I was very fortunate. A doctor put me on without me asking. She just says you need to be on it. It was a very low dose,
Right.
but I was lucky. So I was about 7 years out of menopause. So I went to menopause really early at age 43. I may have mentioned this. When the stress, the divorce, all of that, I got too thin. And then my body just says, well, we don't have enough fat or cholesterol to
Right.
make hormones, right? And then when I kind of came back on board, my body says, there's no reason to fire it all back up. We're not going to do it. So, from 43 to 50, no hormones, no hormone support. And I was actually kind of okay. I had some symptoms, but I didn't know, I'm supposed to do
Right.
anything about it. They weren't debilitating. I was lucky. They can be very debilitating for some women. It wasn't debilitating for me. And then this doctor put me on a low dose of hormones at age 50, and I stayed on that low dose. And it was a biased at the time, which is two different types of estrogens, and stayed on that until I started exploring more about hormones and got more educated. And then I shifted the type of hormone and the delivery form as well about 3 or 4 years ago. So that's kind of my journey. So I am a proponent of HRT if a woman is curious, she wants to try it. And, it's a very individualized decision, very
Hmm.
personal decision. And there's a lot of things that come into play when a woman is making her own decision. I think the biggest favor a woman can do for herself as she's moving into perimenopause and menopause is educating herself on
Yes.
what these hormones do throughout our entire body. So at least there's that, you know how you're learning how to play an instrument, right?
Hmm.
You have to know the theory behind it, even though it might be boring, even though although I don't think it's boring, when it comes to hormones, even though it might take a little bit of your time and that's not where you want to spend it because you have so many other different things to do. I think it's important in order for you to
It
be able
is.
to
It,
advocate for yourself.
it
Yeah.
is very important. And, when you think about, I think well, my son is in 8th grade. In their health class, I think it was this year, they went over reproductive cycles. And
Mm-hmm.
he told me what luteinizing hormone was. He told me what follicle stimulating hormone was, which I found super interesting that a 14-year-old boy could rattle this stuff off to me. If all the time that they put into learning about the reproductive years, and then you know what, like you no longer cycle, you just fall off a cliff somewhere. I like these things need to be understood. And if a 14, 15-year-old boy can rattle off things and cycles about components he doesn't even own,
That's
then
awesome.
everyone who actually possesses those parts should be able to know that.
Yes, I would say, you know, well, you're young, you're definitely younger, a lot younger than I am, but we didn't even have such sex education when I was growing up. But
Just a
yeah,
little
little
blurb for
bit.
about 3 weeks is about all they
Okay.
went over it.
Okay. And so we're always, referring to our hormones only in the box of menstruation and fertility.
Mhm.
And, I like to tell women that estrogen affects every single tissue and
Yes.
organ in your body. And you need to know that, and you need
Hmm.
to kind of know how that happens. It's like the digestive system's my weak spot. Every woman has her own area when we get out of balance where it's going to hit her.
Yes.
And there's so many different ways that estrogen can affect that digestive system, the loss of estrogen. You need to know that in order to know how to support your digestive system, even if you're on HRT. Okay?
Yes.
Because you're not going to be on the same dose as what your body used to make.
Right. I've noticed on your website that you pay particularly close attention to gut health.
I do. I do. I mean, for a variety of reasons, right? I think we learn about what we need to heal in ourselves, right? And so digestion has been a bane, has been a problem a little bit my whole life. But when I went into perimenopause and menopause, there have been layers and layers and layers, and it still wants to play with me a little bit now. So I do pay attention to that. Again, because the loss of estrogen really can affect many different um, functions in the
Hmm.
digestive system. And if you want, we can get into that. I can go through all of that.
Oh, that would be
And
great.
really, okay. And the other thing
Yes.
is, there's two, one of the reasons I'm interested is because of me, right? But which also means I know how debilitating and how awful you can feel when it's not working. And then it's such the seat of everything else that's happening in our bodies, right?
Yes.
So, based on that, so you asked.
Well,
Here we go.
I kind of look at did you ever watch the movie Men in Black?
Yes, long time ago.
Okay, at the and this scene always stuck with me. At the very end, they're looking for this little marble thing that has a tiny galaxy inside, and
Okay.
like the marble rolls and all that, something falls out of a locker. But I remember that somewhere in there they zoom out, and then it's the Earth, and it's a marble, and an
Ah.
even bigger alien has it. And I'm just like, everything inside of everything inside of everything affects the other. And You can't escape it. It's in the environment. It's in your internal environment. It's what you do that affects somebody else
Yeah.
and you can't. It's all
No,
connected.
you can't ignore it. And, you know, if you do any type of farming or grow things or you learn that very quickly of the synergy in amongst nature just naturally. And I don't think unless we are connected in some way, we're growing, we're tending to something like that, that we really have a grasp on that. And so many of us don't really understand that on a deep level. We don't. So you're probably, and your audience is probably farther ahead than most because you understand that, which is a
Right.
real gift. Um, so again, since you asked, I would love to jump into all the
Oh,
ways
please
that
do.
estrogen
Please do.
affects. Okay. So before I get to the estrogen part, specifically, I want to say that, we were talking a little bit about the stress part or stress
Oh
response that
yeah,
we
yeah,
have.
yeah.
Yeah. And women, as they're moving into their 40s, there's usually so many different layers and so many different demands and have been for many, many different years or for many, many years. And so we're kind of coming into this whew, kind of at a disadvantage. And I think more so at the generation now than, let's say, my generation or even our mother's generation. There's just a lot more expected, a lot more roles, I think, for the most part, So we've got that stress, and stress definitely affects different parts or the way our digestive system works.
Yes.
And it can affect the production of stomach acid, which is really important. I'll go into that a little bit more. It can affect our motility. We've got inflammation going on. So there's a lot of different things that can be happening. So let's fast forward to we're losing estrogen. Now, estrogen, again, plays in every single body organ system that we have. Estrogen affects our serotonin receptor site. So that's our brain, right?
Hmm.
And our progesterone's going down too. So that's our GABA. That is our calming hormone. It's a calming neurotransmitter. So again, as progesterone's going down in perimenopause, usually before estrogen does, that whole GABA cycle and response can start getting out of balance. So that in some women can start triggering some things as far as stress response into translates into the digestive system. And then we have the estrogen that starts to drop. And these are all the ways. Okay. So again, serotonin, all right, in the brain. Most of the serotonin is made in our gut. So that affects it as well. So we know that estrogen is part of collagen, right? We
Yes.
know that. Put it all over your face, put it all over your skin, right?
Hmm.
Take collagen, so our skin looks better. Well, we have to realize that there's collagen not just in the outside, not just our skin, it's in our tissue, right? Our ligaments, our tissues. We have little flappers, right, throughout our whole entire digestive system so that things stay in the right place.
Yes.
So in some women, if the estrogen goes down, that can affect our integrity of our sphincters or our flappers.
Okay.
So some women can start having more acid reflux all of a sudden, okay? And because that sphincter is just not working as well. So that can be one thing that's happening. The other thing that can be happening is that when estrogen goes down, stomach acid, the production of stomach acid can go down. Now, some people will, when they're stressed, will make more stomach acid and some will make less stomach acid. So a woman going through perimenopause will often feel more stressed. And so maybe the production of her stomach acid is going down and then the estrogen is going down on top of that. Why is that important? It's important because when we understand the function of stomach acid. So one of the functions is that it sterilizes our food. Is that important?
Right. Yes.
We don't want
Very.
stuff coming in. Very, very important. And then we also have it's essential for breaking down protein. So if we're not breaking down our protein, that whole digestive system is kind of backed up, and we have putrefaction, we have um, motility slows down. So that's an issue. And there's a good chance you're not able to absorb your
Right.
protein, your amino acids the way that you should. Okay. So you're not possibly getting enough protein. And then we need stomach acid to cleave and make available our minerals. Okay, so we
Mhm.
got zinc, we got selenium, we've got iron, and then our B vitamins, all of that has to be cleaved in the stomach in order for our bodies to digest and then absorb it a little farther down the road here in our digestive system. And I want to point out is that, when some women start to have acid reflux, the doctor will say, here's your PPI, your proton inhibitor, or you go and get an antacid, right? Okay, so you're pushing down your stomach acid. And I just listed all the benefits of stomach acid. So you can become nutrient deplete, okay, if you're
Yes.
taking that PPI or the antacid. So there's something going on that you need to understand. And there are some herbs that you can take that kind of put a layer on things. You need to find out, do you have H. pylori? Is it the stress? Is it the estrogen? What is it? So that's one part,
I like
right? Of our
to
diet.
tell my clients a little story when they say, "Oh, I'm on omeprazole, or I'm on
Ah,
Prilosec, or I'm on, oh gosh, the myriad of names for Protonics." That one's kind of
yes.
evil. Um, so I tell them, for a year, I worked in an environmental lab and straight out of college, and my job was to test soil and water samples for metals. And the majority of your minerals, in fact, all of your minerals that you need to live in a periodic chart, fall into the metals category.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we would digest these samples was to add acid and heat.
Interesting.
And we would add something called aqua regia to the solid ones, which was a combination of nitric and hydrochloric acid. And then to the liquid samples, we would add straight hydrochloric. So, and then nitric at the end to bump it off. But yeah, I was like, we had to do that in order to get the metals to drop their chemical attachment to the carbon, right? And
Okay.
then
Uh-huh.
we could use the adding water, then got rid of the carbon, and then we
Okay.
would evaporate it down to a tiny concentrated sample, run it through like a ICP, which is a plasma, like a plasma welder, that type of thing, and it would burn it up, and we'd see the spectrum and tell us what was in there. But if we did not add that acid, we could
Mm-hmm.
not get those minerals, those metals, to bump off of the soil or to bump off of the
Interesting.
water.
Yes.
It would be stuck. And it's
Okay.
normally stuck on proteins and or carbons because that keeps it buoyant or
Mm.
afloat in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
that big old mess in the water or in the sludge. We got a lot of sludge samples. It was it was a very interesting but gross job. And, but that's how that stayed there. And I'm like, your stomach's no different. It's just a little
It
chemistry
isn't.
lab. But
This is so much fun to hear. It
yeah,
is. In your experience, I have a question for you.
yeah.
So you mentioned, was it nitric
No, no,
oxide, or
no.
what was it?
Nitric
What was
acid.
nitric acid? Okay. All right.
Yeah, nitric acid. So we would
Okay.
add that and
Okay.
or hydrochloric acid, certain
Okay.
dilutions, that kind of thing. It was kind of some cookbook chemistry. But we
Mm-hmm.
would add that, and then we had little cups, and there are quicker ways to do it with a microwave digestive process. However, I was doing in bulk quantity. I was doing 50 samples at a shot. So we would put them in little plastic cups that were the exact same cups that a supplement company that I use once in a while has. They were 100 milliliter cups. Drop them into a cast iron block that had little circles bored out, and that was our heat. And all our lids were vented. We literally just drilled a hole in the top, and every so many minutes the timer would go off. You had to pick it up, shake each cup, put it back in the block. So, heat, acid, motion.
Motility, motion, yeah.
It's what happens in your stomach.
Okay, you guys, so we are a little chemical biological machine. We really are.
Yeah.
It's no different than nature. It's just we're put together a little differently. That's all.
Exactly. And so I tell people how that works all the time. And then a lot of them, like, you can see the light bulb come on.
Uh-huh.
And then some of them are like, why are you telling me this? And I'm like, because that's the same way your stomach works.
Yeah.
You can't not have acid. You may as well just go on IVs then, because
I know.
you're
You're
turning
not
it
going to
off.
absorb it. Yeah. I love that. I love
And the
it.
majority of it too, when they tell you not to go off of it because the heartburn is so bad, because when you're taking it, your body just circumvents and makes more acid producing cells. So I'm like, this is kind of pointless.
Yeah, it is. And so, yeah, getting off of it, like you said, it needs to be done slowly and it's hard. And there's
Yes.
something else that's driving it anyway. So
Yes. Yes.
there's something else, and there's some things you can do naturally. So, okay, so there's the stomach, right?
Yeah.
And then we have the small intestine. And I already alluded to the fact that, we need estrogen for collagen for tissue integrity. Well, the digestive system is just one cell layer thick. And so if it gets hurt, it's not going to be very happy. And we can sometimes get a little bit of a leaky gut if there's inflammation going on. And that leaky gut then can turn into some food allergies and irritation and more inflammation in the body. And I know a lot of people, as they're getting older, they're eliminating foods and they're having more problems with their digestive system. They're having more IBS, or SIBO. And so they're restricting a little bit, and what they're eating becomes narrow and narrow. And the problem with that is, one, you're not enjoying your food. And two, when we start narrowing what we're eating for an extended period of time, we're cutting out nutrients, foods that have valuable nutrients to us. So, it can be a stopgap if you're finding that's what you need to do. But again, we need to go to the root of why this is happening.
Right.
And then this next piece is something that is really important to me, and I stumbled upon it, thank God, because I was struggling. But choline or estrogen is an essential part of making choline, which is essential for making bile.
Mm.
And bile is what I call liquid gold because it does so much in our body. And if we're not making it and it ain't flowing, we're going to be hurting. Okay.
Yes.
So some of the functions of bile, biggest function of bile is that it's made in the liver and it's responsible for packaging. It doesn't package it up, but our liver packages up our toxins. Okay. That's where everything is kind of processed, and our hormones as well. Okay. When we're done with them, it's all kind of packaged up and then it's attached to that bile. And the job of that bile is to take it to the gallbladder. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sits in that gallbladder until we eat some food. And when we eat some food, our bodies, our digestive system, signals to the gallbladder to spit some bile out. And we need that bile not only to, take the toxins out, we need that bile in order to break down our fats, to have our fat soluble vitamins able to assimilate, and the fats to be able to be assimilated. I mean, we need those. And then also, bile sterilizes, so we have more sterilization at the top of the small intestine happening. And then it helps with motility. So
Yes.
if we don't have enough bile, we don't have that peristalsis that's so important. And for me personally, how I stumbled upon it, I had already been on HRT for probably 4 to 5 years. It was a low dose, okay? And I think as we start moving into menopause, or as our body changes, we may need to adjust our dose. I definitely needed to. I didn't know that at the time. But what was happening was that all of a sudden my skin got really dry and bleeding around my nail beds, and my heels were bleeding. I mean, it hurt. And when I would go into the ocean, all of a sudden, the salt water would be really, really, really stingy. That never had happened to me before. So I'm thinking, okay, thyroid. So I checked my thyroid and I do the full panel, not just TSH and T4, but the full panel. It's at least 6 markers, women, ladies. Um, Came back, that wasn't it. And I happened to stumble across, do you know who Ben Lynch, Dr. Ben Lynch is?
I've
He's
seen his name on stuff.
okay. He actually has a supplement line. He does, but he's he teaches about genetics and genetic SNPs and all of that. He's brilliant. He's just the way his brain works. It's like, okay. But anyway, I ran across a post talking about bile. Did he put it in association with estrogen? I don't think so. But I made the connection, I think, later on, and I thought, he had a supplement out which had herbs, had taurine, had choline. I forget the other herbs that it had in it, but it was a bile support, and I started to take it. It was like, oh my gosh, it's exactly what I needed. And I was my gut was about 80% as far as my bowel movements and things like that, but I kind of got stuck there. But once I started taking the bile, support, my skin got better, and my bowel movements were more frequent and more on track. So, and some women are going to be more susceptible to this than others depending on their genetic makeup. I have a genetic SNP, nothing wrong with me, right? But it's just something in my makeup, genetic makeup, which it makes it harder for my body to handle that choline and to make
Hmm.
that bile. And if you look at my family, my mom had her gallbladder removed. All right. So she had gallbladder issues. I have other members of my family that have really dry skin, which can be, on their scalp and things like that, which can be an indication that you're not absorbing your fat. So, you know, everyone is different, but I like to give that piece. And, we see more women who will have their gallbladder removed once they move into menopause. And I know, Lori, you've got a whole, there's many things that we can eat, right, that are
Hmm.
bitter, and bitter helps to
Yes.
make and move that bile. So ginger, um, there's so many
Well,
different things.
bitters in general.
Bitters, yeah,
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah. Well, there is, I also worked a lot as a bartender. Um,
You
so
get bitters you put into your cocktails,
yes,
right?
uh, back in the day, like I'm talking Victorian times, or even before that, they used to use bitters. It was your
Yes,
aperitif
yes.
before the main course.
Mhm,
And usually the main course was something very heavy, meat laden,
mhm,
pork
mhm,
chops.
mhm,
And then two, the salads that you get
mhm.
typically are not a bowl full of crappy iceberg. I shouldn't say that. Some people really like it. But it would be your bitter things, your
Right.
arugula, the purple
Yes.
one, radicchio,
Yes.
and dandelion green.
Yes.
So those bitters, they make
Mm-hmm.
everything flow.
Mm-hmm. 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 And I've got some arugula in my refrigerator, and it's like, I gotta have some tonight. So we can eat our bitters. Some of us need a little bit more support, especially
Hmm.
with the loss of the estrogen. And I do get adequate estrogen support now, but I still find that I need my bile nutrient support as well. So, and there's different times in our lives that will need support in something and then not. And then I think, unfortunately, and I used to poo-poo this, but as we get a little bit older and our body does get a little bit more worn in, I guess, it can and does need more support in certain areas. And knowing how to do that is, that is priceless. It really is. And we
Mm-hmm.
can do it with food, we can do it with herbs, we can do it with supplements, we can do it with, hormone. We can do it in a lot of different ways. But yeah, our body will need support.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, there are times when I sit there and I think, ugh,
I
I
know.
just don't want to do all this stuff. And then I
I know.
think, now I'll skip it for a little while and then I start feeling it and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it again.
You know what? And I think that's one of the best things to do. And I tell my clients to do. They say, well, do I need to keep taking this? And I'll go, stop it. Your body will tell you
Yes.
whether or not you need it or not. And, herbs or supplements, and, supplements often have herbs in them too. Um, it's like play with it. There are times when your body may need it and times when your body doesn't need it. And the more
Right.
information, more you play with it, stay curious. It's not a rigid
Right.
thing.
Well, and I think we're so institutionalized with the way that
Mm,
mainstream medicine is, that when we get a prescription, that they
mm-hmm,
do need to be taken as directed on your schedule, because like
mm-hmm,
heart medication, that's life sustaining stuff.
mm-hmm,
um Whereas supplements are more like food. Maybe you drink a cup of coffee every single day, but then you go through a streak for 2 weeks where you just aren't feeling it. You're not
mm-hmm.
going to self-destruct. Your body's not going to quit functioning. Might kind of
Right.
suck, but but it's not the same as a life-sustaining prescription medication. So it's a
Good
little hard
distinction.
to like
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
that mindset, because I mean that's drilled into people.
It is drilled into people. And, just because you mentioned that, and I think it is a really good point, I think when women start taking HRT, okay, it's drilled in them that they have to follow what their doctor is giving them. And I'm not saying don't, okay, but I also want you to know, um, is there's wiggle room too. Like
Yeah.
if you want to play, you're taking one patch and you're thinking maybe I need a little bit more, you can put a patch and a half just to play with it a little bit, as long as you know that you can refill.
Right.
You could tell your doctor, I plan on playing with it a little bit. Can I get my refill a little bit earlier? Or getting some creams to kind of put on it and different times of the month to play with it. So, um, yeah, you don't have to be afraid when it comes to hormones with what you're doing. Having said that, right, you don't want to overdo it. And
Right.
and and I'm getting into something else, but I just want to say, some women do pellets, some women love pellets. I do not like pellets for a lot of different reasons from what I've seen come into my practice with clients that are on pellets. I see a lot of different things, and it's just not a way of administering hormones naturally at all, because it's a big, huge bolus going in
Hmm.
that your body's not used to. And it maybe not in the beginning, but I've watched, been doing this for 4 for 5 years. All of a sudden, I see sex hormone binding globulin all of a sudden go up. And it's because it's trying to protect the body from that bolus. So you do something that's not physiologically, that's really not physiologically balanced or mimicking, your body will eventually respond to that. Probably not in a good way.
Right. Now, when you say that you see that particular component go up, talk about the testing that you do, because a lot of times in functional medicine they have a much larger panel. They test for a lot more different components. Um, Usually, most people are used to your health fair walk-in, you get your cholesterol, what is it, like your big 12 or whatever. They check things to make sure that you're not dying.
Dying.
But they don't really make sure that you're functioning optimally. So, what do you test for in functional nutrition as opposed to medical?
What I'm going to give you here isn't even functional. It really isn't. It is stuff that you should be able to ask for from your doctor. And here again, it's knowing how to ask for it. And I mentioned the PDF that I have made for
Mm-hmm.
women, and there'll be a link, I'll send it to you, where it goes through what you need to ask for when you're perimenopausal, menopausal, or even younger, and why, and how to ask for it. So, over and above your CBC, your metabolic panel, comprehensive metabolic panel that the doctor would do, and the lipid panel. Those are the basic ones, right? For some reason, some doctors are still not doing vitamin D, okay?
Yeah,
It's
you have
like,
to
you got to get
ask
vitamin
for
D.
that. You have to
It's
fight for it.
crazy. It's crazy. It's a $20 test if you pay for it out of pocket, if you find the right. And I do order lab work at cash prices for my clients because I want them to be able to get it done.
Right.
So, over and above those basic things, there are about 4 different panels that I ask my patients to do. One is a thorough thyroid panel, especially moving into perimenopause, because there's so many different reasons why the thyroid can start shifting and thyroid hormones will start shifting. And it's interesting because sometimes we'll see the perimenopausal symptoms, right? And sometimes it's actually attributed, it can be attributed to thyroid issues going on too. So we really need to know that distinction. So thyroid panel would include TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone, which is not a thyroid hormone. It comes from your pituitary. It talks to the thyroid to stimulate, to make hormones. It's stimulating the thyroid. And doctors will stop at that. And it's like, no, 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 no. Now, in the ideal world, T4 and T3, which is our thyroid that's circulating in the body, if it's adequate, it should be able to talk to the pituitary, and then the TSH would be an accurate number. I don't see that happening a lot, okay, that accurate number happening. So we have to know what free T4 is. So your
Mm-hmm.
thyroid makes mainly T4, a little bit of T3. What you need to know is that your cells in your body only utilize this T3. It can't utilize T4.
Right.
So then that T4 has to go basically to your liver, it goes to other parts, to your digestive system, and then it's converted into T3. So some doctors will do TSH and T4, but they won't do T3. So do we know whether or not your body is turning the T4 into T3? No, we don't know that. And is that an important part? You betcha it is. Then I like to see something called reverse T3, which is your T4 goes to that liver and it'll be converted to T3 or T4. If there's a lot of stress going on, your body feels like it needs to conserve, hold on to everything. We're not letting anything go here. It will slow the whole metabolism down and convert that T4 more into reverse T3. So we need to see if that's happening because it can tell me what we need to do here a little bit better. Then I also like to see what your thyroid antibodies are. So there's 2 different antibodies that you want to test. Sometimes, and doctors will not test for it unless they think you're hypo or maybe hyper. We see more hypothyroidism in
Even
women.
then, there's a lot of general practitioners who refuse to test for that. Even endocrinologists who refuse to test for that. If they don't have other numbers that point to it that are a
Yeah,
problem,
yeah.
they're like, oh, that's not necessary. That's a waste of money.
And ladies, the reason why it isn't is because if you do have those antibodies, and they're low and they haven't gone off the charts and they haven't been off the charts for a long time yet, we can know that you have an autoimmune disease, okay? It might not have manifested to the point where it is hurting your thyroid gland yet,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome because we can, our immune system's overreacting. So, if we see those markers go up, we can then go, excuse me, we need to look what's happening in your body, okay, that's triggering this immune response
Right.
before it attacks your thyroid. So you need to have those done. I have a couple clients that, they have elevated antibodies. Their thyroid hormones look fabulous because they're young and we caught it early. All
Right.
right. So hopefully we can keep it there. Yeah. So you need to
Right.
insist.
Right. And then that lets the person getting the test done, that lets them know that they have to
Hmm.
watch their stress levels, that
Hmm.
they have to live in a more anti-inflammatory way. And that is not easy once you're in the thick of it and
That's
everything blows
true.
up. You
That's true.
can't just drop everything and shift down once you're
You're not
running
feeling
Mach
too good.
20.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I those are very valuable. And I find it refreshing that people in a functional space, practitioners such as yourself, are able to order those tests because they
Hmm.
do lend a lot of information, and it's way more than what a doctor does. Um, some doctors are great about that. Other doctors, I feel like they're just fishing in the dark. And
They are. And but you know what's interesting is that, and here again, in that PDF, in my little booklet, it kind of gives you clues on how to ask for it. So sometimes doctors will even kind of cue their patients, maybe. Okay. Like I had one doctor do this. She goes, because I wanted insulin, my fasting insulin. So that's on the metabolic panel. Okay. I wanted
yes,
my fasting insulin. She looked at me. They will never do your fasting insulin unless you're
right?
diabetic. Okay. That's
They
way,
always
way
will
too
do your
late.
fasting glucose, and they won't touch your fasting insulin unless you step over the magic number of 90.
Right, right, right. Well, or your A1C is 6.1. Then they might
Right.
do it. Then they might do it. That's way too late. So she looked at me and she said, "So there's diabetes in your family?" And I went, "Yes, there is. There isn't, okay?" But she was cueing me.
Hmm.
And so I appreciate it. So sometimes we have to understand how to ask for things, all right? We have to play
Yes.
the game. We have to play the
Yes.
game. All
Yes.
right, the next one would be the nutrient panel. So I like to look at, of course, vitamin D. I like to look at iron and ferritin, which is a storage form of iron, but ferritin also tells us a lot. And you can't have one without the other. You need to do both of those because sometimes I'll see high ferritin, which you would assume that you have adequate amount of iron, and then I'll see low iron, okay? So it's really important to have both of them to have a full picture. Something called homocysteine. Okay,
Hmm.
homocysteine is an indirect way of measuring your folate and B12 status. I don't like a direct measure of serum, which is what most doctors order if they're ordering that, because it doesn't tell us what's happening in your cells. So homocysteine requires both B12 and folate in order to be broken down. So if it's elevated, that gives me a clue that we probably need some support there. It's also an inflammatory marker, and it can be a risk factor if it's elevated for cardiovascular disease. So that's a really good monitor. Um, I don't really measure magnesium. If you do, it's RBC, so red blood cell. It's not just straight serum. It feels like I'm missing one more on the nutrient. If I think of it, I will tell you. Zinc's not a good way. You can do RBC zinc too on that. But here again, these are just blood work. They're not expensive things that
Right.
we're doing here. We really aren't. Um, And then the other panel that I like to see is the inflammatory panel, which would be the homocysteine again. It would be your HSCRP, which is C-reactive protein. It might be your sed rate, which, it kind of tells us how clotting is going on in your body, how inflamed you are that way, your propensity towards that. And then insulin, again, is a marker of inflammation. Actually, if your insulin is elevated, then they will be causing inflammation. And what a lot of women don't understand is that insulin is a fat storing hormone. It's a hormone,
Yes.
okay? And its job is to grab excess glucose that's out there, right? And put it in your cells. So it's energy. Glucose is energy. So if you're not using that excess glucose right now, it's energy, right? It's going to put it in that storage form, which is fat.
Hmm.
So you could be trying to lose weight, and if your insulin's up here, it's going to be, man, you're going uphill here. It's uphill
Right.
battle.
Right. And
Hmm.
I was looking more into that at one point because I had read about it in I think a oh, and I can't remember the name of the doctor. I don't Kirsten Kirsten something. Kirsten Dunst? No,
I don't
Kirsten.
know.
That's an actress. Whoops. Anyways, it's a doctor that she writes a lot of articles online about
Okay.
hormones, and she was talking about about your fasting glucose. And I'm like, well, yeah, I get fasting glucose done. But then she said that you can still have a fasting high insulin. And I went, whoa, wait,
Oh,
what?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I was always told if one was fine, the other was
No, no,
fine.
no, 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 no. S- So, do you want to elaborate on that? Do you want me to?
You can go ahead.
Okay. So what's happening is, again, our bodies are such wonderful machines, right? It wants to keep us in homeostasis. So it wants to keep us balanced. So let's say that you consistently eat too many carbs and sugars and things like that, and you may not even think you are, okay? And that glucose is going up. Our insulin will march out and say, "Oh no, we're not going to let it go past this. We're going to take it and put it where it needs to be." Well, if it does it consistently over years, we can become insulin resistant, right? Our cells will
Hmm.
become. So our bodies will make more and more insulin in order to keep that balance going, to keep that glucose down. So your glucose may stay the same. Your A1C may look awesome, okay? But your insulin's going up, and that will happen a good decade before your A1C and your fasting glucose will go up. All right. And I also want to point out it's not just what we eat, it's also cortisol that will raise glucose.
Hmm.
Okay. It's also inflammation that will raise glucose. And I like to invite anyone to wear a continuous glucose monitor, and they're out there like for $50 for a couple weeks just to see where you run. I've done that quite a few times, and I can see when my body is either sick or stressed,
Right,
by the
right,
way.
exactly. Exactly. And I still have to do the continuous monitor. I have a cousin who is type 1 diabetic. And
Ah,
she has explained to me thoroughly how they all work. And so, yeah, it,
cool.
she and I trade autoimmune disorder stories. So, but
It's nice to have someone, right, to
yes,
commiserate
yes.
with.
And if you have one autoimmune disorder, it is an inflammatory condition. So you are prone to many, many,
Yeah,
many autoimmune disorders. They come
you
in the
are. So
cluster.
you want to squash that response
Yes,
down as much as you
yes,
calm it down. Calming is better than squashing.
yes.
Is she in perimenopause or menopause?
Yeah, she's in her 50s. Um,
It's
she's a crazy
it,
workaholic. So,
she is
yeah,
okay. Is she diabetic?
yeah,
Type 1? I'm
yeah,
sorry. I don't know how much you want to read.
yeah,
Is she type 1?
yes.
Okay. So this would be something interesting, and I know we have to go. Is I don't think, I mean, one of the best ways of kind of putting things in perspective when we lose our estrogen, our bodies become so much more inflamed and much less metabolically regulating,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Women who are type 1 diabetic, okay, they can watch their need for insulin shift as they move into menopause with the loss of estrogen.
Ah,
It's right there.
I
It
will
is
have to
right there. So
ask
I would love
her.
for you to ask her
I
if
will.
she
I will ask
experienced
her.
that. Yeah.
Or if
Yeah.
anybody listening has experienced
Yeah.
that, chime in, let us know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have to go, but if you can remind me, how do people find you?
They can find me by going to alivingbalance.net, not .com, I know. And to even look at my course, you can go livingbalance.net/ and then course. But everything what I offer other than the course is there. I have a blog there. I have recipes there that are really good too.
Recipes are
So
always good.
yes, recipes are always good and they're healthy and tasty. I love food. And then look at the show notes so you have that link for
Mm-hmm.
the PDF, which I hopefully be very valuable to you.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm on YouTube too. So I post
Awesome.
things. I'm on Instagram. I'm Cindy lowercase Dupuie or underscore, sorry. Cindy underscore Dupuie. So I post more there than Facebook. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Um,
You can post wherever you want. You just say where you're at and people will find you.
yes.
Yeah,
So that's where I'm at.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. And then you said too that you have a newsletter, an e-newsletter that goes
Oh,
out.
yeah. I do have a newsletter that I send out every week or every other week, and I try to bring up the most, not the newest, but I'm always researching, always researching. And one of the ways to get on the list would be to sign up for the PDF. You'll
Awesome.
automatically be put on the list there. And there's also some recipes too off my website. I'm looking at my cover, Cindy D's recipes. You can sign up just for that if you want. It's
Oh,
it's not a thick book, but it's just some fun things. Yeah,
awesome.
you'll get on my list that way.
Well, I
Yeah,
am so glad that I got a hold of you. And I
me too.
definitely think that you are in the league of holistic badasses.
Why, thank you.
And I
I'm
thoroughly
glad I made
enjoyed
it.
our talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. You take care.
Hopefully you really enjoyed this episode with Cindy. I know I did. I enjoyed every moment of our talk together, and I could have gone on for hours. So if you liked this podcast, be sure you hit the like button, smash that follow or subscribe, depending on which platform you're on, and hang out with me more often, and go out there and be that holistic badass I know you can be. Hey, I know learning about herbs can be a lot. There's so many plants in the world and so little time to learn about them. Do you wish that you had something that was a little more portable, a little more user-friendly? Are you tired of digital downloads? Do you just want something you can write all over to put your notes and the information you find helpful in it? Well, now you can. This is One Leaf at a Time. One Leaf at a Time is an installment herbal by me, curated by me, and you can buy it piece by piece with plants that grow in your area. Maybe a few you haven't heard of before. Maybe you know all you want to know about one plant and you just don't need any more information on that right now. That's where One Leaf at a Time comes in. This is a binder-based installment herbal, curated by me. The first purchase gets you the binder and the first booklet installment of Dandelion. It's available in my shop at herbtickonline.com. There will be more sections available so that you can build your herbal the way you want. And there's always a section for notes. And it doesn't require Wi-Fi to access it. And it wasn't written with AI. These are my pictures. These are my words. Instructions of what it looks like, how to find it, all in one spot, available for you. Together, we can learn about herbs. One leaf at a time.